Marcus Aurelius said the obstacle is the way. But here's what nobody tells you: your enemies are the obstacle. And they're also the map. Your enemies see the version of you that your friends are too polite to mention. Abraham Lincoln kept his political rivals, men who despised him, inside his cabinet. Seward, Chase, Stanton. These men called him incompetent, a clown, a backwoods idiot. And Lincoln listened. Not because he was weak. Because he understood that hatred is a form of attention, and attention reveals truth. Stanton, who once called Lincoln a gorilla, later stood over his deathbed and said, "Now he belongs to the ages." The man who hated Lincoln hardest saw him clearest. Friends filter their feedback through loyalty. They protect your ego. Your enemy has no such incentive. They are running a forensic analysis of your weaknesses 24 hours a day, for free. Every time someone despises you, they are conducting an audit you could never afford to pay for. The psychological mechanism here is threat perception. When we feel threatened by someone, we hyper-focus on their flaws, their patterns, their tells. Your enemy has done this work on you. The question is whether you're brave enough to read the report. The things your enemies accuse you of are often projections, but sometimes they're mirrors. Nietzsche wrote about ressentiment, the psychology of people who tear others down because they cannot build themselves up. Your average enemy is running on ressentiment. They see something in you they cannot achieve, and it burns them. But here's the nuance: even projection contains data. If someone calls you arrogant, maybe they're projecting. Or maybe you are arrogant and have simply surrounded yourself with people who call it confidence. The Stoic move is to sit with the accusation without immediately defending or immediately collapsing. Ask, is there even 10% truth here? Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of yourself you've buried because they were inconvenient or shameful. Your enemies, in their hostility, often drag your shadow into the light. This is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. The man who can look at his enemy's critique and extract the signal from the noise is operating at a level most people never reach. He's not looking for validation. He's looking for data. Praise from allies makes you soft. Pressure from enemies makes you precise. Consider a blacksmith. Iron doesn't become a blade in a warm room surrounded by people who love it. It gets beaten, repeatedly, under heat, against resistance. Theodore Roosevelt spent years being mocked by the Eastern establishment: too loud, too physical, too undignified for politics. That mockery sharpened him. He stopped trying to fit their mold and built an entirely different identity: the Rough Rider, the Trustbuster, the man who charged up San Juan Hill. His enemy's contempt became the blueprint for everything he was not going to be, and that clarity is what forged him. Psychologically, this is called oppositional definition. You understand who you are partly by understanding who you are not. When someone actively opposes you, they are drawing a line. And lines are useful. They tell you where you stand. Constant validation from friends creates a kind of identity fog. You lose definition. Resistance creates definition. A sculptor doesn't add material, he removes everything that isn't the statue. Your enemies are removing material. Let them. Your enemies track your patterns over time in ways your friends simply don't. In Machiavelli's The Prince, he observes that a ruler's enemies study him with an obsessive consistency that allies rarely match. An ally wants stability and peace. An enemy wants leverage. So they watch. They remember. They catalog. This is why political opponents are so good at finding contradictions. They've been keeping records. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "Recede in te ipsi, withdraw into yourself." The enemy forces this. When you know someone is watching for your contradictions, you either become more consistent or you become more exposed. Either way, you learn something about yourself. The mechanism is sustained attention over time. Friends forgive inconsistency because they love you. Enemies weaponize inconsistency because they don't. This means your enemies have a more accurate longitudinal view of your behavior than almost anyone else in your life. If you're intellectually honest enough to study what they've noticed, not to agree with them, but to audit yourself, you will find patterns you were blind to. The man who can do this is doing something most people never attempt: using hostility as a diagnostic tool. How you respond to an enemy reveals your actual character, not the character you perform for friends. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, described watching men in Nazi concentration camps choose how to respond to conditions designed to strip them of everything. Some broke. Some became cruel. Some, a small number, chose dignity. The enemy in that context was as extreme as it gets. And yet Frankl's observation holds in ordinary life too. Put a man under real pressure from someone who genuinely opposes him, and you see who he actually is. Not the polished version. Not the dinner party version. The real one. Epictetus, himself a former slave, put it simply, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your enemy is the test. How you respond is the result. Under social threat, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of your rational, value-driven behavior, goes into competition with the amygdala, which wants to fight or flee or destroy. The men who respond to enemies with calm analysis, with strategic patience, with even a grudging respect for what the enemy reveals, those men have trained something real. This is not weakness. This is the hardest kind of strength there is, the kind that doesn't need an audience. Here's what we covered today. 1. Your enemies see you without the filter of loyalty, which means their critique, however hostile, often contains truth your friends will never tell you. 2. The pressure of opposition doesn't just reveal your weaknesses, it sharpens your identity. You become more precise about who you are when someone is actively trying to dismantle you. 3. How you respond to an enemy is your actual character. Not the character you perform, not the one your friends applaud, but the one that shows up under pressure when there's nothing to gain from looking good. The Stoics didn't say, avoid your enemies. They said, use everything. Your enemies are part of everything. If this resonated with you, subscribe. We drop one of these every Tuesday and Friday, no filler, no motivational fluff, just ideas that actually hold up when things get hard. Hit the bell if you want it in your feed the moment it drops. And if you know someone who's dealing with a difficult enemy right now, send them this. It might reframe the whole thing.